Headphone highlights. Yes, yes, yes. Hope you're all doing very well. And today we're taking a bit of a step back into gaming headset categories. Yes, there you go. Yeah, headphone highlight emoji. Thank you, thank you. And we're talking about something pretty cool today. This is another drop collaboration. This is the drop EPOS H3X. Very industrial looking headset here. EPOS is, let me do my best to explain this without getting too far into it. In a very general sense, EPOS is Sennheiser's gaming line of headsets. Sennheiser is a name we all know and love. But EPOS is, I keep bumping my mic, I'm sorry. EPOS is their gaming line. So that in of itself sounds pretty encouraging. It is a gaming headset designed from Sennheiser, more or less. So that's interesting. And this is a very interesting headset, sorry. So let's get in here. Starting with the build. This is a very, very all plastic kind of headset. Gosh dang it, I keep doing it. All plastic, but look at that design. Lots of crazy kind of futuristic-y space station, Star Trek, Star Wars kind of industrial design going on here. So you got your plastic here. The microphone is also a plastic arm that does bend. So it's actually plastic, hard plastic here. And then this section is a rubbery plastic so that you can bend it around. The microphone also does come down, and when it is in the down position, it turns itself on, and the up position, the microphone turns off. The hinge here is a nice, hard, robust plastic, very, very thick, and it has an interesting little kind of swivel, and it kind of comes out at a weird angle, and it's neat. It kind of allows the headphone to both swivel inward like this, and a little bit this way as well. So enough motion to get pretty comfortable around the ear. The adjusting mechanism is a very simple click, click. It's a very satisfying click, as you can probably hear it. And it's a very firm adjustment, and it will definitely hold position pretty well. You really have to apply some force to move the position out of alignment. You do get some markers right there on that spring steel to help you fine tune the adjustment of the headband. The headband then goes up into here. The top of the headband has this nice textured wrap. It's very kind of, well, not quite a t-shirt feel, but definitely a fabric wrap. And on the underside, that fabric wrap is met with some protein leather, which is very, very soft. You don't have a whole lot of padding, as you can probably see. There's not much there. But what is there is, as usual, pretty soft. On the opposite side, on the right channel ear, you have a volume dial. So you can move this dial with your finger. You put this on to show you. I can rotate the dial like that, and that will adjust the volume from the headset. So rather than having to rely on an actual interface or your PC or your TV or whatever to adjust the volume for the headset, you could just do it right here. It's convenient. The pads are a hybrid pad. Yep. Wow. Cool. These pads are, there you go. So on the outside, you have a protein leather. On the surface, you have a very soft, almost micro suede feeling fabric. And on the inside, it's going to be very hard to tell, but those are very, very small perforations. So a little bit of a perforated inside, or at least a textured one. It's a little hard to tell, but it's a hybrid pad. It's nice. The cable it comes with is a pretty nice cable, though it does have a weird termination. I don't think we've really seen much of this before. It is just a simple 2.5mm, which isn't that big of a deal, but you notice how long and slender this is? It's because, like in typical Sennheiser fashion, they have this really kind of deeply inserted in there. So you can't just use any old 2.5mm cable on this, which sucks. I don't like that, because you have to have something that is thin and long enough to really kind of get in there. Unlike with something like those 500 series Sennheisers, though, this isn't it's not a locking system. It just is deep. I don't know why they do that, but it is what it is. The other side of the cable terminates to a right angle, 3.5 millimeter, and it is a 4-pole, so you could just connect this directly into your controller and be able to use the microphone. But if you wanted to use it on your PC, it does also come with a splitter, which is always nice. I'm very appreciative when they come with a splitter. It's a pretty basic splitter, but it does the job. You got your microphone out and your headphone out here. I do wish, I'm going to try and show this to you. It's going to be very hard to see, and it's going to make my point for me. It's really, really hard to tell, but right there on the face of the termination, there are little like indentations that show an image of a headphone and an image of a microphone, but they're very, very subtle. It's pretty hard to see. I really wish that these were color-coded as well to really make it very, very clear, but it's, you know, just being persnickety at that point. So yeah, build's good. It's very, very light because of all the plastic. And while it is plastic, it's very, very high quality plastic, and it's not like creaky or wobbly. It's just nice. It's nice, nice, nice. Very sturdy, comfortable build. I have full confidence in its robustness. So good build for sure. The comfort. So the comfort is a little bit of a mixed bag. The headband is nice. When I put these on, I don't really feel much of the headband. It's there. It's definitely on top of my head. So if you're very, very sensitive to having it on top of your head, you might not like it too much, but it's fairly evenly distributed. I don't feel like it's just pushing pressure down right on the top of my head. It's kind of going right about to here. So not all the way around my head, but most of the top of my head is fairly evenly distributed. But again, the headphones are light, so it's really not that big of a deal. The pads, well, I do like the pads, and I forgot to mention that the pads are also very soft. I'll put that out here really quick. Pretty good soft pads. I like the pads a lot. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of ear volume. It is just enough, so you're not getting a lot of space around the ear. It's not like you feel like you just kind of have the headphone over your ear, as you would expect from an over-ear. It's more like your ear is just on the edge of all sides of this pad. I mean, if you look at it, it looks pretty small. And it really is. It's a good 3-knuckle high, which is good, but ooh, it's not even 2-knuckle width wide here. So when I put these on, I have the back of my ear touching the inside of the pad, the back of the inside of the pad, the bottom of my ear, the top of my ear, and even the like very front top of my ear. So basically from this point all the way down here, all of this part of my ear is touching the pad and just slightly getting kind of pushed in. It's not that bad, but it is there. It is touching the ear. So if you don't want your ears being touched whatsoever, there you go. Now you know that's a case that's happening here. But I think it's fine. What is the problem is, oh boy. So these are in typical Sennheiser fashion. They have a lot of clamp force. A lot. Right out of the box, these are very, very clampy. And, you know, that's just what Sennheiser likes to do. And I get it because it really forces the driver towards your ear. But the shape of this, when you look at this, it's almost like it's coming to a point right here. And when you got a lot of that clamp force, it's directing a significant amount of that force to the very tip right here of this chassis and where the pad is. And man, that sucks, because right where that is where my jaw line is, right where my jaw connects. So that sucks. With all that clamp force and that very specific point pushing right there, man, it is not a very fun time. Oh boy, right out of the box, they're not fun. I mean, my first couple of days wearing these in the week, oh my god, we got a raid. So yeah, it being at this point and with that clamp force right there on your jawline, it's not good. It's not good. And right out of the box, wearing these the first couple of days in this week of me wearing them, man, it didn't take long. Maybe like 15, 20 minutes of wearing these that I started to get headaches. Really not ideal. really not great. But I will mention that you can nullify it a little bit, because fortunately, because the headband in here is just this spring steel, you can, you might cringe a little bit when I do this, but you can bend it out. And that's what I've done. I have just taken the headphone and just section by section kind of bent it out, and it's made this a little looser. And now the clamp force is nowhere near as bad as it was. Now it's manageable. I am fine to wear these for a while. We've been wearing these now for an hour and a half, and it's been just fine. Totally fine now. No headaches. It's still a decent amount of clamp force, but it's no longer really kind of putting a pressure point right there on my jawline. Thank goodness. So you can fix it a little bit, but you have to be comfortable with being able to kind of stretch it out. In terms of our cloud comfort scale, our scale of comfort, where do these fit? I'm going to give it 2 ratings. 1, just out of the box, if you were to do nothing with it. I'm going to give it a 4 clouds of comfort. If you have a really narrow head, a small head, it probably won't bother you too much. But my big fat head, it's too much clamp force for me. So 4 clouds of comfort right out of the box. However, now that I've stretched them out, it's significantly better. I'm going to give these now a solid 6 clouds of comfort. Almost 6.5. No, not almost. I'm bumping it up. 6.5 clouds of comfort. Pretty darn good once you stretch it out, but you got to do that. If you're not comfortable with bending the headband like this, like I was just doing, that is the quick and easy solution. If you're not comfortable with that though, I would suggest getting yourself a yoga block. This is just a foam block normally used for yoga, but these are really, really great headphone stands. You can really just take your headphone and put it on the yoga block. Ba-boom. Headphone stand. It works really, really well. But the other thing that you can do, it doesn't have to be a yoga block to do this, but anything that is head width, you take your headphone and you just put it on there. And now, if I leave the headphone like this for a couple days, maybe even go a week like this, just leaving the headphone sitting like this, and it will, for the most part, help stretch it out. And then you don't have that really uncomfortable clamp force. So that's another solution if you're not comfortable bending the headband. Okay, so now we can talk about this microphone a little bit. This microphone is a system you either really like or you maybe don't really like, but I, for one, do really like being able to just kind of push it down, it's on. Push it up, it's off. I like that. And the microphone does naturally come down to where it's not in my area of vision. It's not like in my sight line, like those sensors we were looking at before. It's not like sitting right here under my eye and I have to bend it down. It naturally comes down right to a very almost perfectly optimal speaking position. And for those of you watching on YouTube, the microphone sounds like this. This is what the microphone sounds like for the Drop Plus EPOS H3X. Actually pretty good. Pretty darn good for a gaming headset. So the microphone's good. I like the microphone a lot. It's good quality. I like the build. I like how bendy it is. I like how it comes up and down. And it sounds good. It's a good mic. I approve of the mic. Now we get to talk about the sound. In typical fashion. Can you listen to music with these? Can you listen to music with these? Can you listen to music with this gaming headset? Yes, you can. Should you? Yeah. Yeah, you kind of can. These actually sound pretty freaking good for music. Of the gaming headsets that we have looked at so far, these are the most headphone sounding. Holla frickin' Luya. These just sound like headphones. That's amazing. Let's break it down. Starting with the bass range. We have a gaming headset that does not have ridiculous boomy, bloomy, explosive, veiling bass. Thank God. The bass on this is really quite tight and very well controlled and managed. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't reach out into your mid-range and veil everything. It's really tight. You're getting good sub bass, it's nice and punchy when it needs to be. Stuff like explosions is really wonderful and very immersive, but it's not too much. It's not like rumbly and growly and gross. The mid bass is very clean, very natural, even. And man, it's just a very neutral sounding bass, which is again very surprising for a gaming headset. It's a very headphone like bass. So that's wonderful. I like that a lot. It's got a lot of detail too. It's not just boomy for boomy's sake. It's got some levels to it, layers to it. So you can really kind of hear differential dynamics in that bass range. It's really well presented. I was very impressed with the bass range and how well controlled it is. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the treble. The treble is really quite detailed. It's also very bright. Sometimes in certain situations, it even edges on the side of sibilant, but that was fairly rare. And I kind of am okay with it because the brightness of the treble really helps with gaming in particular. For music, it sometimes could be a little much where, really sharp S's and T's and really sharp strings can be just a little fatiguing, but it was never so much going too far that I couldn't take it and I had to, take the headphone off or whatever. So yeah, the treble was really quite nice. Very detailed, very bright, but very nice. It didn't really necessarily sound like it was very elevated. Neither the bass nor the treble sound like they're elevated. This doesn't sound like a V-shaped headphone very much. The mid-range is a little recessed, so we're probably looking at more of a U curve, but it didn't have that typical like overly dynamic bass and treble range you get in gaming headsets. This is, in terms of gaming headsets, this is incredibly even and neutral. It's really very nice. And speaking of the mid-range is absolutely wonderful. It's got a lot of detail, which is again kind of a rarity with gaming headsets, but the mid-range on here is really quite good. It's got good detail. It's not a tremendous amount, right? It's still a gaming headset, but in terms of gaming headsets, it's got a good amount of detail. I was pretty impressed. And the mid-range is also pretty well isolated. Like I said, your bass range isn't bleeding into it, but neither is your treble range, peeking over it. Everything's very even, isolated to where they belong. So that's really nice to see and nice to hear from a gaming headset. Oh my goodness. The mid-range on this was really delightful, and in music, it worked really well. I was really happy to see that. Vocals in particular are very clean. There were a few exceptions. Sometimes certain male vocals would hit a little bit of just the slightest amount of distortion, but really not enough that I would call it much of a negative. And some particular voices, the male vocals sound like they weren't really supernatural. They sound a little too raspy, but overall, male vocals sounded very nice, very natural, and very clean. Female vocals, much the same, very clean, very clear, but rather than kind of having a little bit of that rumbly distortion, they kind of occasionally, depending on the voice, would be a little shouty, just a smidge, because the treble range is so bright on this that, that can just kind of happen, but it's really not bad at all. Not at all. Very good. And again, since we're talking about a gaming headset, let's cover the noise floor. There is none. This isn't a wireless headset, so there really shouldn't be any noise floor in here. But still, it's a gaming headset. You never know. No noise floor. Everything's very quiet. When things are not making sound, you don't hear anything. And this is a closeback headset. So when I put these on, I hear nothing. The passive noise isolation is really intense. It is, I can barely hear my voice right now. I probably sound like I'm shouting a little bit just so I can hear myself. But man, I can't hear my computer anymore. I can't hear my fan anymore. I can't hear anything other than the muffling of my own voice. So these isolate very well to, one, make it so, people aren't going to be able to hear what you're listening to, but also you can't hear anything. So there's hardly any room for distraction. You don't get a whole lot of dynamics in general, but what is there is a little bit. and it is well presented. It's still got enjoyment in there while also maintaining something that's fairly neutral. So good balance of a neutral flat signature while having a bit of just the smallest amount of dynamics to give it a little bit more energy and make it a bit more fun to listen to. The imaging for these, with music in particular, is it's a little narrow. The imaging's not huge. So it's kind of like, it's very forward facing and in a cone in front of you. Very horizontal. You're not getting a whole lot of height in your imaging. So you're not hearing things up here, but you're hearing things in front of you from the sides outwards. So it's kind of 180 degrees forward of imaging. And the imaging is decent. It's really okay. It's not the most detailed imaging. I'm not being able to pinpoint exactly where my guitarist is and exactly where my violinist is and exactly where the timpani is or whatever, but it's good enough. I get the general sense of where that's coming from, and I can kind of feel that separation. So it works out pretty well. Soundstage wise, you're not getting a whole lot. It's fairly narrow soundstage, but it's also not just beaming right into your ears. It's like here-ish. So you get just the smallest amount of air, smallest amount of space between you and the sound. And it's just enough to make it help it feel kind of immersive, but it's not huge sounding. And because of that, you're really keeping a lot of that detail. All right, so that's how they sound with music. How about with gaming? A lot of times it could be different, but it's kind of mostly the same story. Everything that I like about this when it comes to music also applies with gaming. The bass range is still very well controlled while being very energetic. It does get, admittedly, a bit boomier when you're gaming, but it adds to the immersion of it. Lots of immersion from all the bass range. But the brightness of the treble, oh my goodness, it makes pop shots and footsteps so clear. Like really, really clear. It's pretty impressive. So if that's something you really need, ooh, you're getting it. Because yeah, the pop shots from gunfire and people walking down metal railings or whatever, very, very clear. And the imaging does get improved a little bit from games. So I'm still not getting a whole lot of imaging behind me, and I'm still not getting a whole lot of imaging above me. It's still mostly horizontal, but it does elevate just a little bit. So I'm getting, rather than it being a flat plane, I'm getting it like a little bit up here and just the slightest bit, little bit more behind the ear, but not really behind you. But it is improved. And the imaging is still really, really good. It gets even, I would say, maybe a bit more clear with the imaging when you're gaming with it. So you're able to really kind of help pinpoint where combat's coming from, where people are coming from, where dialogue's coming from, whatever. So with gaming, it's, I like that my notes here say very, very nice big booms. Yeah, very, very nice big booms. This is a great gaming headset, but it's also a pretty freaking decent musical headphone. It sounds pretty flippin' good. I was genuinely impressed. And, you know, it being a EPOS product, which is that off-brand of Sennheiser, you got a little bit of pedigree there. And it kind of shows because, yeah, these sound great. Of the gaming headsets we have looked at so far, these are the best sounding ones. They're not nearly as comfortable as those Cooler Masters, but they do sound better. They're not as good of a value as the Cooler Masters, which you can get for about $50 sometimes, but they're still pretty darn close. This is an $80 headset right here, $80, and you're getting what I am comfortable to recommend as a general listening for music headset. You can definitely do it. They sound better than the Cooler Masters, and they're better built. They're nowhere near as comfortable as the Cooler Masters. So there's your trade-off. But these are really quite flippin' excellent. The only real caveat to them, the only real part of them that is kind of a hard recommendation right out of the box is the comfort. Because man, that clamp force is tough. But again, bend it out and you're going to be fine. The Drop Plus EPOS H3X. Great little headset. Really, really great. Super recommend it. Links in the description. Go check it out. there's your headphone highlight. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again very soon.